Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope you all are doing fine. I am Amreen Ahmed, your course instructor, and today we'll be continuing our lecture about Jacques Marie Emile Lacan and the stages of psyche development which he has proposed. Now, in previous lecture, we discussed that he proposed three stages of psyche development, and these stages are also called order, namely the real order, the imaginary order, and symbolic order. Just to recapitulate the yesterday's lecture, real order is a preverbal state in which infant is in preverbal stage in which infants are in the state of nature. What do we mean by they are in a state of nature? It's that they feel themselves aligned to their mother's body and they feel that they are actually the part of their mother's body. So whatever the need they have in the infantile age, these needs are being fulfilled by the mother. For example, food, shelter, and all other basic needs. This very stage is characterized by unity and completeness. Why it is so? Because whatever the child needs, it is being taken care by the mother. So he believes that actually the mother is the part of his body. Mother and his own body, the mother, the self of the mother or the being of the mother and his own being actually makes one a single being, and that is why he feels unified and completed. Along with this single unified being is also self-sufficient. Why? Because mother is providing each and everything. So child believes that my body or my being is self-sufficient. It cannot distinguish itself as a separate being. Coming to next order, that is imaginary order or the mirror state, it is the next stage in the development of the psyche, in which child realizes that he has some discrete boundaries. He has a being or a body or a personality which is different from his mother. His mother is not the part of his body or his being. Rather, his mother is a separate entity and he is a separate entity. So this separateness brings two things. The one is joy, the other feeling is of alienation. The joy is that because when he sees himself in the mirror and he experiences his image, he believes that this image is I. What is I? The I self or the ideal ego. Now the mirror image is complete in itself, while in contrast he could only see his body in bits and pieces. So in reality he is fragmented, but in the image of the mirror he sees himself complete, and he mistakenly believes that actually this image is me. So according to Lacan, the idea of the self which he has created out of that mirror is illusionary, it's not true. And at this stage also he differentiate between the other and the other with the capital O. Yesterday we discussed that the other with the small o refers to the I self or the ego. The other with the capital O refers to the other people around the baby. Okay, dominated by the demand. Now needs are being replaced by the demands because he has been separated and now he knows that he is not self-sufficient. He has to meet his need by demanding something. Now let's come to symbolic order. Now this order starts when a child recognizes his own self, his ego or I self, as well as he recognizes other people. He sees that other peoples are the complete beings. He sees that myself could also be completed and he hankers after it. Now, as we have already discussed, in the imaginary order or in the real order, his needs and demands are being fulfilled. Now, needs were being fulfilled by the mother. When he came to some imaginary order, these needs were replaced by demands. Now he is in symbolic order. Here he is transforming from nature to culture. Here he is in a state where he has to perform within a society. Now, as you can see, that the relation between the mother and the son or the child has been broken. Needs which were being fulfilled automatically have been changed into demands, and now within a community, he has to communicate to meet his needs. And what does that child need for communication? At this point, the language is introduced to the child. Okay, this is the age of around about 2 years or onward. Here, the culture is inculcated within that child through language. Now, whatever he has lost in the previous ages or whatever is lacking in him, now he is going to give them names. Okay, and yes, here the identity also takes shape. Here, in symbolic order, he recognizes himself as I, and he gives himself name as I. Okay, so identity of a person is being made or is being constructed in symbolic order, but through language. So, what Lacan believed that in the development of your personality, language plays a very important role because it is a tool which introduces a child to the culture or the nurture around him, and it also teaches the child how he could substitute the things which are lacking in his life or in his personality. For example, when he was in imaginary order and he felt, uh, you can say, hungry, he would not. He did not used to say, "I am hungry," and you would give me food. Okay, his needs in the imaginary order, or sorry, in the real orders were being fulfilled automatically. So there was no need of telling something or giving names to something. But at this point, whatever is lacking, he has to make up for that lack by giving names to it. Okay, so he starts naming things. He starts even naming himself as I and creating his own identity. Now, to master a language or to communicate within the community or within his family, he has to master language. And language can only be mastered once you have to once you grasp the concept of differences. Why it is so? Because language is actually made up of differences. As you can here recall what is the name of yes, Sasha, Ferdinand de Saussure, what he says, if you could recall, that signifiers give meaning to the person, or signifiers become meaningful just because of the differences. For example, the word hat is different from bat. Why? Because we hear it differently, and that is why it creates a kind of different concept from the word bat. So he has to master the concept of differences within the language. Now, he does not only learn the differences within the words, he will be learning differences within the cultural norms and cultural traditions and whatever the language is inculcating to him. As you already know, that language is an umbrella term or an umbrella phenomena, or rather an iceberg phenomena. Sorry, I used the wrong word. It's not an umbrella term. It is an iceberg phenomena. What do we mean by iceberg phenomena? You must have seen icebergs. The scientists say that only 10% of an iceberg is visible over the surface of the water, while 90% is hidden inside the water. Same is the case with the language. Language is such a complex phenomena that you cannot understand that how many different systems it is generating or it is influencing within our society. It influences your thought, influence your culture, it influences your language, it influences even the way you see the world. So when you are learning language, there are number of aspects of your life, or you can say disciple of knowledge, which you are, or number of experiences which you are getting through the language. So he is not only differentiating between the words, he's differentiating what you can say the day is, what the night is. And then a very important concept which is being introduced by Lacan here, he understands, or here he grasps the difference of gender. Now, before discussing this point of gender, or before discussing the law of father, let me clarify one thing. There is one thing, or one term, sex, and there is another term called gender. Now, these are the two different terminologies having two different notions behind them. When we say sex, or when we say being female or being male, these are the biological phenomena. For example, a person is born, a child is born. If it's a baby child, then she would be having a kind of particular physiology, particular anatomy, while when a male child is born, or a baby boy is born, then he would be having different physical orientation, and different physiology, and different even genital organs and all that. Now, this is quite a natural phenomenon. But when it comes to gender, gender is something which is not natural, rather, it is socially constructed. You are born as a female, but woman is something which you are made by your society. Now, how it has happened, you can see that, let's take very easy example. Whenever there is a couple who is expecting a child, so they would go for the sex test or the gender test, and they would come to know that they are having a baby boy or a baby girl. What do you think, what kind of behavior they would show? If it's a baby girl, they would be like shopping for her in a specific way, like they would be shopping uh, pink dresses and delicate sort of stuffs, and all those articles which are related to women only, like frocks with frill and ornaments and with catchy colors. But if it's a baby boy, then your shopping would be quite different. And like you would be buying blue colors, and you would be buying toys like aeroplanes, while if a baby girl, you would be buying dolls. Okay, this is very basic example I'm giving to you. But on a later stage, this phenomena becomes very complex. When a child is born, or let's say there are two children who are born in a family at the same time. One is a baby boy and the other is the baby girl. They are being brought up in the same environment, but their personality would have different aspect, or would have different orientation. Why? Because the male child is being raised with different perspectives, while the female child is being raised with different perspective. For example, you would say to a female child, or a baby girl, that you should not jump higher, you should not laugh louder, you should wrap the scarf. This is our traditional values of being woman. And same is the case with the male. Culture or tradition has certain roles which are gender oriented. You grow up to an adult, then being a female, these are your tasks, these are your duties you have to perform. Being a male, these are your responsibility which you have to take care. Got this? So being male and female is a biological phenomena, while the gender difference is created by the society. With this gender difference, gender discrimination is also created by the society. Now, now let's come to the next point. Socialization by directing and limiting behaviors. At this point of time, when the language is being introduced or the culture is being introduced to you, you are rather actually made acceptable to the society. You are being socialized by certain social institutions, and these social institutions are your family, your parents, schooling. Okay, so how do these social institutions work? They limit or they direct your behaviors. They would say that this behavior is acceptable and this behavior is not acceptable, and they would limit your desires, they would limit your needs. For example, if you would say that I would I want this and I want ice cream, and if it's a harsh weather or harsh cold, then your mother might say that you are not allowed to have ice cream. Now this is a very trivial example. Let's take it to the larger extent. For example, these social institutions will tell you that lying is a bad habit. It is something which should not be accepted or which should be punished. Okay, so in this way, you could say that your super ego is being created. Super ego, you know the term used by the Freud. Socialization by directing and limiting behaviors. These behaviors we could accept. If you are going outside, you have to cover your head. This is an acceptable behavior. Okay, if you are going to school, you have to wear a kind of uniform. This is an acceptable behavior. Limiting your needs, these things, limiting your desires, these things you could have, these things you cannot have. Got this? Now, according to Lacan, this very symbolic order, unlike the real order which was dominated by the mother, this very order, this symbolic order, is governed by the law of father. Now, this very point is also connected with the previous one of the socialization which we have just discussed. How it is governed by the law of father? Why? Because society have certain rules and regulations which it use to socialize a child. Okay. Now, whose rules and regulations are these? Let's come to the very basic unit of a society, that is family. In that family, a child can experience that it is the father who is the head of the family, and it is the rules and regulations of these are the rules and regulations of father which are being followed by every member of the uh, house. Okay, so he is learning within, if he is a baby boy, he is learning to align himself to the father, and he is learning a kind of behavior which is dominating behavior. But if it's a female child or a baby girl, she would be learning to accept the law of father. Got this? In this way, socialization happens within the society. Now, these ideas have been rejected or criticized by a number of the critics. Uh, this we'll be dealing later on. Till now, we'll be just seeing that what Lacan has to say. So, in this way, when a child is learning through the law of father, he is basically constructing his idea of gender. He is seeing that father is a kind of dominating figure because he is a male, while his mother or his sister, or let's say the other female members of the family, are submissive member. Why? Because they are female and they lack phallus. Now, phallus is basically a genital organ of a male. But when Lacan used this word is not referring to only a kind of uh, physiological organ or the physical organ. It is basically a signifier which is signified what? Absolute power. Why? Because a child can see that a particular sex have a particular gender role which is giving him, you can say, dominancy or the absolute power. So he would also try to possess phallus, and everybody or every gender would try to possess phallus, but nobody could have it absolutely. So absolute power will be with no gender. When you will not have absolute power, it would become your desire. Now that desire will remain unfulfilled, and it would make you fragmented, it would make you incomplete. Another point here, he says that when a child knows others with big O, it creates a kind of separateness or aloofness within him.
He sees that these others are something which are different or which are separate from him. So he believes that if he would be others or he would govern the others, then he would be having uh, a kind of, you can say, unification. Why people want to rule over the others, why people want to dominate other peoples, why people want to have power, according to Lacan, because they want to make up for this separation, make up for this fragmentation their personalities are being fraught of. So these are few of the Lacan's important points or notions which he has discussed in these stages. Let's discuss. There are a few more points about the symbolic order. So, in conclusion, he says, or he is of the opinion that life is nothing but a futile endeavor towards completeness and wholeness. Throughout the life, a person is actually struggling to attain two things. One thing is ideal ego, the I self, which is complete, which is whole, which is, you can say, full in every regard, self dependent. But because this self is illusionary, he would never be able to attain it. Another thing, he is trying to dominate, or he's trying to get power, absolute power, or dominate others to make up for his separateness or alienation. So he would be uh, ravaged by the desires of absolute power, and this desire will create a kind of lack within his life, and this lack, this desire for wholeness will be an ongoing process, an ongoing phenomena, a kind of phenomena which would never cease. Desires, with all desires, will never be fulfilled, and so his personality will never be complete. He will always be fraught with fragmentations, desires, and lack. These are the few important points which Lacan has discussed. Now we see that the literary implication of these very ideas of Lacan, because we have to imply this very theory on the literature. As I have already told you, that the theories which we'll be covering in this course are not purely literary theories; these are other critical theories, the theories which are applied on the society and culture for the betterment, but they may be applied on literature too for the better interpretation of literary piece. Now, what are the literary implication? Character can be analyzed according to the stages of development, the writer has said. And then another very important thing is that when Lacan is saying that everything is fraught and incomplete, it creates a kind of anti-realism in literature. Why? Because we believe that we used to believe that language refers to the reality or objective reality outside, or the physical world outside to us. Now, when Lacan says that signifiers have no particular signifiers to be attached, they are drifting everywhere and there is no permanent meaning or signified to any signifier. It basically breaches the relation between the word and the thing. When the language is detached from the reality, so it also affects the narrative too. Before this notion, it was believed that the fictional world, the world we create through the words, through the language within the fiction, it is a kind of real world. Why? Because language is equal to the reality. But here, in the post structuralism, with the Lacan's theory, we came to know that language does not pertain to any reality outside the language itself. So the relationship between the fictional world and the real world is also broken. So people started writing, you can say they started experimenting number of things, and few were the anti-realism. What is anti-realism? They started using the language which is fragmented, which is not linear. They started using they started using plots which are very much twisted and non-linear, chronologically very abrupt, as you can see in the stream of consciousness. Okay, this is also a good example of anti-realism in literature. Another is these are the subpoints of this anti-realism in literature: breach between language and reality. I have just discussed narrative would be broken and fragmented. Another important point which Lacan has discussed is of jouissance. Now, this is a German word. I don't know how would we pronounce it correctly. So I'm just going through the spelling and phonic relations. Jouissance is basically the synonym of sexual joy, you may say. So here Lacan is actually saying that because writer is a fragmented personality, so what he tries to do, he tries to make himself whole. He tries to hanker after the wholeness and compactness and completeness with the help of literature. So he would be projecting his desires, his those desires which are in reality lacking in him. Okay, so he would be projecting, or he would be fulfilling all those desires within literature, and in doing so he would be getting pleasure. He would be getting a kind of illusionary effect of being whole or being complete. So this is the end of my lecture about Lacan. I hope I have made myself clear. Even then, if you do not get any point, you may contact me. So you may drop your queries in the comment section or approach me on WhatsApp. Plus, I have already um, sent some article on the WhatsApp group. So go through those articles. Plus, you will be reading that book, Theory into Practice by Anne Dobby. I hope you will be able to complete this topic. With Lacan, we have completed psychoanalysis. Our next lecture will, inshallah, be on post structuralism or postmodernism, probably. Okay, so until then, inshallah, take care. Allah Hafiz.